This video will explain about the calendar, the sundial, and player actions. See Rulebook heading 5, Calendar Actions, for more information. There are 12 months on the calendar and a triangle sundial with 3 tips colored green, yellow, and red. At setup, players will place out 5 tokens of their color onto any of the tips with a max of 3 tokens per tip. Beginners should do 2 on green, 2 on yellow, and 1 on red. The green tip of the sundial should start out on the green glowing coin or sphere. The number of tokens on the tip equals how many times in general you may perform that action. To start the game, rotate the sundial clockwise 1 month so the green tip is pointing to action 1. Players may choose any action in any order with at least 1 token on the sundial tip using 1 action per player per turn. Play will continue clockwise until all players have taken 3 actions. Using an action consists of using some or all of the tokens on that tip during that turn. You cannot use new tokens you will place on the tip of a sundial for an action you are already using or used previously. New tokens are added after the action has been taken. You may, however, use the new tokens on an action that has not been taken yet. The max tokens per tip is always 3, excluding the boon, which is explained in Player Tribal Mat. Once tokens are on the sundial, they can only be removed by claiming tiles. Action 1, Move and Tribute. Move actions are calculated by adding the number of players' tokens on the sundial tip of Action 1 and adding to any Player Tribal Mat travel skills. These moves can be split up and applied to all, some, or none of the workers. One move is considered moving from a current tile to an immediately touching tile. Tribal leaders are the only workers that can move into the volcano tile, but cannot move through it. Multiple tribal leaders may occupy the volcano without triggering combat. All tiles can be moved into, including controlled villages, except an opponent's tribal village. We will use purple for several examples of Action 1 move. In example 1, purple has a tribal leader and 2 workers on his tribal village. He looks at the sundial and notes 2 tokens, which gives him 2 moves. He then looks at the travel skill and notes no extra bonus moves. He decides to move his tribal leader 2 spaces into the volcano tile with blue's tribal leader. No combat happens here. He could tribute at this time, but decides not to and ends his Action 1. In example 2, purple now has travel skill level 2 open that gives him 4 bonus moves in addition to the sundial moves. Note that these bonus moves are not additive with the previous skill level. Purple now has a total of 6 moves. He moves 1 worker 3 tile spaces to stone, 1 worker 1 tile space to corn, and the tribal leader 2 tile spaces to the volcano tile. He decides to tribute with the tribal leader and moves him to the tribute spot on the village worker mat. He then pays the necessary goods to the bank and takes the tribute card and scores the points. See number 10, Tribute, in Rules for more information. Action 2, Gather. A player may gather on as many tiles as he or she has tokens on the sundial. A worker must be present on an open spot on the tile, which are signified by black blocks with a red outline, and are not fully covered in lava. Workers gather 2 goods each, and tribal leaders gather 3 goods each on fields, jungles, lakes, and quarries. All tiles may be gathered on except for an opponent's tribal village, which is color-coded with a circle around it. You cannot gather on lakes for fish unless you have Craftsman Skill Level 1 unlocked. When gathering on a tile, except a village, you will remove the workers to your play area with the goods. Note that all workers will be placed back to any of their controlled player villages, even if the village is full of lava, at the beginning of the next round. When a worker gathers on a village, the worker is placed on an open spot of the village worker mat. If the spot is already taken on the mat, then that player cannot use that spot unless the copy player spot is open. In this case, the player would put their worker on that spot instead and pay 5 coin to copy, in addition to the normal skill cost. Opponents score 1 point per tile if you gather on their tiles. Identical touching tiles to the gathering tile gains 1 extra good per tile. That is touching the one gathered on. Chains do not count. You can claim an uncontrolled tile by gathering on it by removing a sundial token and placing it on the tile. A tile may only have 1 token on it unless it's a technology tile. Purple shows us an example of Action 2 Gather. He places his pawn over the Action 2 space on his player mat. He notes 3 tokens on the yellow tip pointing to Action 2 on the sundial. This gives him the ability to gather on 3 tiles. He then looks at the map, noting 4 possible tiles to gather on. He decides to gather on the corn tile controlled by blue player. The worker would gather 2 corn plus 1 bonus corn from the touching corn tile controlled by purple. Note that the corn tile controlled by green is full of lava and doesn't count. He takes the corn and puts it and his worker in his play area. Blue would score 1 point for controlling the corn tile. Purple then decides to gather on his tribal village. Note that he has 2 workers but only 1 spot available as the other is covered with a lava token. He can only send one worker to the village worker mat. He wants to use travel, but the action is already being used by a blue worker. He must therefore put his worker on the copy player spot and pay 5 coin to do so. He pays the necessary goods of 2 corn, 2 fish, and 2 stone to unlock travel skill level 2. He removes the token and the extra worker. The extra worker must be placed out on a controlled village. Purple decides to put the worker on his other village instead of his tribal village. He now places the token removed from the player mat onto the sundial. The only open spot is on the green tip. Note that all the sundial tips are now full and no more player mat skills can be unlocked unless Purple claims some tiles either through combat or placing a tile out. Purple has one more token to use to gather on one more tile. He cannot use either village, so he gathers stone. The worker gathers 2 stone and is returned to the play area. He chooses to claim the stone tile by removing 1 token from the sundial. He chooses red tip and places the token on the stone tile to claim it. Action 3, Trade and Tile. Action 3 allows you to perform a trade action at the market and allows you to perform a tile action. Action 3, Trade. You can only buy one type of good and or sell one type of good once per turn. You may only sell the same quantity of one type as you have tokens on the sundial tip. You do not have to buy or sell if you don't want to. For example, 2 tokens on the sundial tip would let you buy 2 wood and sell 2 fish. The exception is buying points, which are unlimited per turn. You cannot buy and sell the same good on the same turn. The market adjusts to supply and demand. Tile action does not affect trade action. The quantity traded is always the number of sundial tokens. See Market Mat for more information. Action 3, Tile, Draw or Play. Players may perform one of 2 actions. Number 1, draw a face down or face up tier 1 or tier 2 tile if tier 1s are gone and put it into their hand. Or number 2, play one from their hand, but not both. This requires a token on the sundial tip. Tiles remain secret until played. When playing a tile from your hand, place anywhere on the map touching 2 tiles. You may choose, or not, to claim the tile immediately by placing a token from any sundial tip onto the tile. If you had 2 tokens on the sundial, then you could sell one type of good up to a quantity of 2, and draw a tile or play a tile. In order to draw a tile and play a tile on the same turn, you would need skilled tile upgraded and use 1 sundial token. In order to sell one type of good, draw a tile, and play a tile, you would need 2 sundial tokens and skilled tile upgraded. There's a max of 3 tiles in hand, and you must discard or remove extra tiles from the game after your action 3. If there are no more face-down tier 1 tiles to draw from, discard the last face-up tier 1 tile and replace with a tier 2 tile and start using that stack. Note, if you only have 1 token on the sundial, you can only take 1 action of trade or tile, but not both. Remember that 1 token equals 1 action. You cannot use trade or tile twice during a turn, regardless of how many tokens you have. This ends the general explanation of actions 1, 2, and 3. Please see Gameplay and Market Mat for more information.